Welcome everyone. This is our final webinar for the current version of the CMALT CMOOC for 2019. So we're into week 7 and the topic for this week is looking at your future plans and also wrapping up your portfolio. So that's kind of what we're discussing. And we've got a bit of a crew with us tonight, today, this morning, tonight, whatever, depending on where you are. Joining us from all around the world, so I'll just quickly introduce those. So we have on my screen here we have Neil. I didn't quite catch that, Neil. You must have muted.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning from Neil. Now apparently it's 5:30 in Japan, so Neil is very keen.
Morning, Neil.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Stephanie.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Neil, and in person, sort of. And hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
So, thanks for joining us, Stephanie. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Good to see a full house today.
Hi, Lisa.
Got Kavita.
Hi, everybody. Greetings from Melbourne.
Hi, Kavita.
Yeah. And we've got Ben.
Hi.
So good to see that you're not. Yeah, good to see you're not coughing this week, Ben.
Well, I'm still coughing, but recovering.
Oh, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here, and hopefully we can have a lively discussion this morning as we're kind of wrapping up this version of the CMOOC. So yeah, we're looking at future plans, and once again, that's kind of like the bookmark section for a CMALT portfolio. So the first section is the contextual statement, which is kind of like, I suppose, your motivation, your what motivates you to be involved in technology enhanced learning, some of the influences behind that, etc. And that part of your portfolio is not actually formally assessed, but you do need to have it. So you're not going to get your accreditation unless you have a contextual statement. And that can be, obviously it's going to be very personal. It's about you and it's about your experience. And then the final bookmark section is the future plans, which once again is not formally assessed as such. So it's not, assessed on certain criteria, but you do need to have a future plans section. So that's really sort of indicating that this is not just a one-off, point in time, but that you are planning to go forward with, integrating technology into your teaching and learning practice, and just, give the reviewer a bit of an idea of what some of those ideas might be for the future. And perhaps that builds on the rest of your portfolio and looks at, okay, well, this is some of the issues I've highlighted, and this is what I would then like to, in the future, look at and do and pursue. Maybe that's more professional development, maybe it's building on a project, maybe it's, you've developed a framework that you really want to implement. It could be really anything. So that's what the future plan section is. And then I guess the other thing that we were looking at discussing today was what sort of format could your portfolio take? There's a whole range of those. I'm sure Ian wants to probably talk again a little bit about Adobe Spark because he's kind of our guru on that. So yeah, so let's just sort of go around. Everyone give us a bit of an idea what you think your future plans might be if you're going to put that into your portfolio, and what do you think are you going to be using for your portfolio if you haven't started already, or if you have already started, what are you using? So let's start with Ian.
Okay. Well, during this sequence of the CMOOC, I've actually been doing my portfolio, so I've been putting up a section each week. I've actually put up a section this week as well, but it didn't go up until a couple of hours ago, so may not have had a chance to see it. In that I put advanced topics, which is one of the new sections, but then at the end of that I've also put future plans. And ironically, it turned out to be one of the shortest bits of my portfolio, but I referred to everything that was in my portfolio and tried to contextualize it in terms of what I was going to do forward. So there's a bit of CPD in there. For example, I'm quite into Arduinos at the moment, which will either mean something or it won't. So I'm looking into getting my Arduino certification. And some of the projects I've been involved with, particularly the telepresence theatre, and some of the other virtual world stuff that I've done is actually looking at classroom environments. I mean, I'm a very physical teacher, and I believe quite passionately that we can take that physicality into sort of virtual spaces, which is quite different to online learning now. So I've talked a little bit about that, so that's all in there. In terms of the tool that I've used to present, I've used Adobe Spark. I'm a bit of a fan of Adobe Spark. It is really easy to use.
You've got me sold, Ian, for sure.
All right, okay, that's good. I don't work for Adobe, by the way. I don't. It's just sadly. But one of the nice things about it, it's a really new breed of software, and it just takes all the hassle out. But I think in taking the hassle out, it doesn't necessarily make it easier. It just means that there's less barriers between you and what you want to say. And certainly in terms of things like imagery and stuff like that, it's really easy to use the built-in libraries and things to pull in sort of cleared imagery that's been cleared, and it's automatically copyrighted for you when you publish the thing. So it takes all the hassle out. And I think in that context, it becomes a great democratizer, because suddenly it's not about who's created the most beautiful portfolio or got the technical skills. It's actually about, well, okay, we can make it look good. Yeah, right. What are you saying? What's the message or whatever? So I'm sorry, I've gone into lecture mode there. This is what I do when I teach Adobe Spark. But there we go. Anyway,
Yeah.
That's me. I've probably said enough there already.
So I did have a quick check of the project bank just before I started the webinar, just to check that you had actually posted this week, Ian, and I saw that. So haven't had time to see what you've actually posted, but that's a great summary. I was really quite intrigued by a comment you made about getting Arduino certification.
Yeah.
I've obviously heard about Arduinos and seen them used in education, but I didn't know there was a certification. So what's that about?
Well, it's really cool. I mean, and I found it, I should be honest, by accident, because I was sort of digging into these things, and just to give my interest on it, they're wonderful little devices which can connect spatially into virtual spaces. So I'm seeing them as, I'm pretending to hold one here, but I'm seeing them as sort of physical devices that I can start to use to highlight virtual spaces. So that's sort of my interest in it. And that probably all sounds a bit high-flying and a bit over the top, but it is quite, I think it's quite fascinating. But in terms of getting these things, they're basically little pieces of electronics, and they were designed as an educational tool. So introducing electronics to people, taking away all the sort of hassly bits, whilst allowing people to connect with the really sort of the conceptual, interesting bits of electronics. And so that in one sense, they're really easy to use, often aimed at school kids and various students and things. But they've introduced certification. So they have an Arduino starter kit. And that starter kit is produced by the company, and it contains a little Arduino and some components and stuff like that. But basically, it has a book of projects. And so if you work through the book of projects, you're actually covering all the concepts. So basic electronics, basic programming, the way you connect the two, different kinds of sensors, all that sort of stuff, motors, moving, inputs, outputs, all that stuff. So it's a fairly, you know, sort of structured course. It's beautifully done, by the way. It's really nicely designed. But they've recently, it's only, I think in the last couple of months, introduced certification, which is an online thing. It costs you about $35, or if you buy the new starter kit, you can buy the accreditation with it. But it's about an hour online exam where you basically just answer questions relating to the electronics and stuff. But at the end of it, and if you pass it, then you get the accreditation, which I think is well worth, because it's not trivial. It's I think it's something that's quite, if you achieve it, I know if I achieve it, I'll think, gosh, you know, actually that was well worth doing, because the learning journey on it and everything is there. Anyway.
So is the certification basically about learning the Arduino kit, how to operate it, how to program, or was it about teaching, learning, or what's the focus of the certification?
Okay, the idea with the certification is that at the end of it, you'll have demonstrated that you understand basic electronics, basic programming, basic microcontrollers, and are able to actually do things with that stuff together. That is completely and utterly transferable outside of the Arduino world, so to speak. But it's based on the Arduino kit. But it's not about.
So it's kind of a micro credentialing sort of approach, is it?
Yeah, yeah. So if I got that, it would prove I could use an Arduino and apply it in certain ways. It wouldn't, for example, show that I could teach it. It would be if I was teaching electronics like that, I might encourage my students or base a course on that accreditation.
No, that's interesting. I have to look into that, particularly for my grandson, I think. So I've been
Just have a
playing
go
with
yourself, Tom.
Yeah, of course. That's the that's the excuse. But we explored the Edison robots, the little programmable robots for my grandchildren. The Arduino, I think, is quite a step up. But it would be interesting for them. So moving on to Neil. So Neil submitted his portfolio, and have you resubmitted, Neil? I know there was a few, like with most people, there was a few areas that needed tweaking, apparently.
Yeah, that's a very kind word to use. Yeah, redoing.
So where are you at with that process? And do you want to tell us a little bit about your portfolio?
Yeah, well, I did the previous, as Tom and Lisa know, I did the previous iteration of this course, and it was before the clocks changed, so it was slightly kinder time. It was 6:30, so but now it's 5:30, so I haven't been able to get up to, so I just thought I'd enter today for the last time. So I did submit the portfolio last time, and so I got a result maybe 2 months ago. And to be honest, I haven't done anything to change it, but maybe half of it needed tweaking or redoing. So I hope to start again in December when I've got a bit more free time, and then do it before the end of the year, resubmit.
Okay, so I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head here, but I know Lisa's working very hard on hers at this point. So maybe you, Lisa, and Ian could sort of do a bit of collaborating and commenting on each of the portfolios to get them sort of to that cross point.
Yeah, that would be great.
So maybe we should then move on to Lisa. Whereabouts are you at, Lisa?
Okay, so I've started using Mahara as a vessel at the moment, but that is going to be changing to Adobe Spark because I like Adobe Spark. It's easy to use. We had a demo about 2 months ago, and Ian's just given me the push to actually go ahead and do it. So I will be using Adobe Spark. I've done core area 1, core area 2, working on 3 and 4 at the moment. And my future plans, I'm thinking I might kind of go along the same line as what I'm doing with the other areas and look at assessment and tools that can be used for assessment and what lecturers are using at the moment and whether it can be improved.
Okay, and I'm just sort of thinking as well, the other thing that's changed since Neil submitted his portfolio and since the last one of our CMOOC is there are now 3 levels of CMALT accreditation. So it's the associate level for those with less experience or less evidence. Then there's the CMALT, which is the standard sort of level, and then the senior CMALT for those with a bit more sort of national, international experience, management, leadership, and technology enhanced learning, and perhaps all research. So there are different options now for people to either to get on board a bit easier with CMALT or to take it further. So just sort of highlighting that there are now 3 levels. Now I know that the feedback coming back from Neil's one was that he was aiming at the correct level, so that was at the CMALT level. Someone like Ian, I suggest, might like to actually head for the senior level. And I'm just possibly, Stephanie might like to look at the associate level to start with having a little bit less experience.
And that's probably where I'm going to come in too. I deal with a range of faculties and a range of lecturers, so trying to pinpoint it down to one bit to do is actually been a little bit difficult. So I think I might stay at the associate and then probably, look up from there.
Yeah, and then you can also obviously move up as you gather more evidence and more experience. And of course, the other thing that's built into CMALT accreditation is that every 3 years you need to update your portfolio to continue that accreditation. So that gives you an opportunity, if you do start as an associate, when you come, to the 3 years to update your portfolio, then you might as well, you've got 3 years of experience that you can build into a CMALT portfolio, and then vice versa. If you've got the right sort of experience from CMALT, you could build it into a senior CMALT portfolio.
My understanding of that is that is that it builds as well. I was sort of looking at the different levels, and I don't know, I think I've got this right, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you start at associate, what's nice is, in a way, it's not a case, I'm going to do associate, now I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. It's actually all the same thing. It's just that you build on it, and sort of, I think you have to add, for the higher sections, you just have to do more. But in a sense, it's sort of, you could just grow your portfolio as your career grows as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. As Ian has said, there are with the 3 different levels, there are different sections that are required as well. So the associate, you have less sections that are required. With the CMALT, you've got to do a bit more around policy and legislation. And for the senior, you need to have, I think, 2 specializations. There's an advanced section, and it's just sort of linking that into your portfolio. So Stephanie and Convita, I know that you two have been collaborating on your portfolios. How's that going?
Is Convita still here? Oh, there you are.
She's just rejoined.
Hi, I'm back.
So we're just putting you on the line, Convita and Stephanie, and discussing how you two are collaborating on your portfolios.
Okay, yeah, let's talk.
Go ahead, Convita.
Well, I think we're both stalling in our efforts to complete this portfolio. I've finally gotten really busy at work after a few months of sort of hanging around and trying to find the momentum. So that hasn't been useful, I suppose. But Stephanie and I have talked about somehow partnering up across the pond and finding a way to train learning designers, or setting up a sort of a framework that helps learning designers really understand the pedagogical aspect of their jobs. I find, in my experience anyway, that a lot of learning designers have a design or a graphic design background or IT background rather than pedagogy. And so that's my, I'll put the video on now. That's my intention, is somehow in the future to bridge that knowledge gap. But this is only my perception, and I'm trying to figure out how I can find out if that is indeed the skill set that most learning designers have. I'm not sure how to come to that conclusion, how to ascertain that and confirm that.
Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting area to look at, Kavita. I think generally, Australia and New Zealand, the title learning designer tends to be what we call an allied role, not an academic role. And so there is obviously less implications around research and around teaching and learning. So yeah, you probably are right that that learning designers come from more of a sort of perhaps a graphical, technical sort of background rather than from the teaching side.
Yeah. Tom, can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
When I submitted my portfolio, I had to join the UK-based ALT, and as a result of that, I kind of accidentally ended up getting loads and loads of emails from them, and they're very interesting. And one of the recent ones was, "What is a learning designer?" So there was about 50 people submitted their definition of what is a learning designer. And also, to go back to Lisa's point about assessment, there's also a thread at the moment on the same group about e-assessment, and there is a specialist e-assessment group. Probably Lisa knows about that already, but if you didn't, that would be another.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on that, and also the one about learning designers. There's also the TEL e-advisors network in Australia,
Escalate one.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's quite a big network. Yes, we had a meetup last month, and that was useful. So I'm hoping to catch up with Kate Mitchell and Colin Simpson from there, and share my ideas with them and see how far we can get.
I'll be interested to kind of connect in with that as well, if you like.
Okay, great. Okay.
So I think that's a great point. I mean, building networks internationally is a great way to get ideas from a whole range of people. And as Neil said, ALT is based in the UK, and when you join up to ALT or join up for CMALT accreditation, you automatically join their mailing list, and so they have quite an active thread where people discuss topics quite regularly. And some of those are quite useful. Others of them are just annoying, but it's up to you whether you read them or not. And then, of course, we've got the same sort of thing in the Southern Hemisphere with Escalate. So Escalate is kind of like the Southern Hemisphere version of ALT, and you can do your CMALT through Escalate, and then the accreditation sort of goes back and forth between ALT. So there's real direct links between those two international communities, but great places to find information, great places to network, and it's certainly been beneficial for me to get to know people in those communities. I mean that's how I got to know Ian, from all the way from Coventry, and so I'd really recommend being part of those communities.
I must have had a couple of old ones that have come through, and I've actually replied. People are actually interested in the Southern Hemisphere opinion of what we've got, so it's been really good to connect.
So Ben, whereabouts are you at with your portfolio?
So I basically like the sessions we had together, and particularly I get a better understanding now that I can connect research, teaching, and technology together using the discussions we have had so far. So in the coming year, I'm just going to make more efforts to work on my e-portfolio for sure. But I also, from the discussions that we had today, I like the idea of that connecting physical space to the virtual space that Ian explained. And I would like to learn more about it because I'm a fan of spaces of learning, and I would be very interested to learn more about this. So what is so specific about it? How is it done? And what are the tools available? So if I could have more information about this, then that would be great. And also that Arduino looks very interesting to me as well. So definitely these are the things that I'm just going to consider for my e-portfolio in future.
Yeah, I find it really interesting, that idea of making direct links between the virtual and the real environment, rather than cutting off completely the real environment. And so the whole point for me anyway, of looking into virtual reality, mixed reality, and immersive reality, is that it enhances in some way the real environment, and is particularly valuable when perhaps the experience that you're trying to achieve in the real environment is too expensive. You haven't got the money, you can't fly around the world to go to Rome, but you can experience it virtually, or it's too dangerous. You're looking at an activity like learning how to cross a crevasse or something, which unless you're very, very experienced, you're quite likely to die. So that's where virtual reality is really enhancing to the learning experience, where it's too costly, there's some sort of prohibitive reason why you can't do it, or it's very risky. And how can we make those links between those two environments much more direct? I think, as Ian and Ben have been talking about, there are ways to do that. The technology is there, and of course, particularly with the rise of 5G networks, it's just that speed of that connectivity is taking away the barrier between linking internationally and between virtual and the real.
I've got to be careful here, Tom, not to get on my soapbox. But I've been working in these areas now for well over a decade, and what's interesting is, from my perspective, and I am very opinionated on this, so please feel free to disagree, But I see these things as they're not things that we add in or they're additional. They just become extensions of our reality. And if you want examples of what I've done, which are real, real in the sense of not physical and not virtual, but they are real, have a look at the stuff I've whacked up into the project bank, because I've actually put a whole set of projects in there with videos and things which hopefully show a very, very practical and pragmatic approach to this stuff, where we just have people who are not techie experts, or it's not novel, they just happen to step into environments where you're able to do things. In terms of the CMALT stuff, I think it's fascinating because in my day job I work very much with physical space as a teacher, how you stand in it, walk away from a PowerPoint, blah blah blah, all that sort of carries an incredibly physical encounter. But those things are actually totally possible virtually, and I think could really, really inform our experience of online learning, which currently, I would argue, is very, very abstract. We expect our students to adopt an abstracted existence and abstracted connections with people, when there is no reason for that. And virtual and augmented realities enable us to step into these spaces on our terms, on our physical terms, that we can go in, and we don't have to do all this learning and learning the abstractions. We just are ourselves and are able to share the differences that we're not necessarily physically present. And looking at
that's always been my issue with Second Life, is the complexity of learning the interface.
Absolutely.
Couldn't
agree more.
Just gets in the way.
Yeah.
Hey, really interesting ideas, and I think it's great to discuss them, and that's fantastic. And I think we're starting to run out of time, so I just really want to say thank you to everyone for being involved. And so thank you, Lisa, Kavita, Ben, Neil, we've got Stephanie and Ian. So thank you all. And I know most of you have been quite regular with the webinars, and that's been great. It's been great to have your input and to see you active in the forums, and just encourage people to share, as you build up your portfolios into the project bank. Keep using the hashtag CMALT CMOOC, and join us on other adventures. We'll probably have an occasional webinar series that we'll carry on with different topics. We run the mobile learning special interest group for Escalite, so you're welcome to join that if you're interested in mobile learning. As we've alluded to, there is a TEL Advisors special interest group for Escalite as well, and I think ALT is looking at developing a whole lot of SIGs in the UK. So thank you once again, everyone, and look forward to seeing some portfolios and some more CMALTers in the future.
Quickly, Tom, I'll just chip in and say thank you for pulling this together. I'm sure I speak on everybody's behalf here.
Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And thank you to a couple of people who have already given me comment on my in my project bank, and I'll put more up today.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Tom, for everything.
See ya. Keep in touch, everyone.
Okay.
This was excellent. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Yes. Bye.